everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike, welcome to Floating in Dreams, which is my hobby YouTube channel, and I like to talk about things fashion and makeup on here. Today, as you can see, we're talking makeup because we're talking about my Nabla eyeshadow palette family. This year I have been splitting my eyeshadow palette collection into a brand each month and then talking to you about all those palettes, doing all of the swatches. So I've got a lot of these up already in case you're curious, so I'll make sure to link those down below. And also if you would like to see my entire eyeshadow palette collection, that just went up at the end of August, so that's quite a recent video as well. So I'll make sure to link that too so that you can have a look at that if you want to see all the palettes I have, because I love eyeshadow and I definitely love a good eyeshadow palette. So that's why today we are going to be chatting about Nabla, because Nabla does some really lovely things, and by now I've had a chance to try everything that's lying in front of you, and that's why I thought we could just chat and have some fun and talk about some Nabla eyeshadow. So let's get started. Right, so as you can see, I've got a couple of the larger Nabla palettes, and then I have the entire line of the Cuties. I don't own any of the Dreamy palettes. I think those are the only ones that are missing, as well as the Poison Garden, I think it's called. Those color stories just didn't really appeal to me, and the Poison Garden is one that I haven't heard that great reviews from, so that's why I don't really own those. The Dreamy palettes are quite cool, quite warm toned, and I myself am someone who loves neutral, cool tones because that's what suits my undertone just best. I do have some warmth in this collection, as you'll see, and those are actually also some of my favorite Nabla palettes. I want to start off with what's over here though, the Soul Blooming. This has sadly been discontinued, which is a bit of a shame because I think this is a perfect spring palette. I don't often keep sleeves or boxes of any of the makeup that I buy, but with these Nabla palettes, I really like how the sleeve is slightly different. And then you just get the palette in here. And another thing that's really great about Nabla's eyeshadow palettes is that their packaging represents the color story that you get inside. So these kind of shades are the shades that we get in the palette, which I think is just such a good thing to do because it just really, you know, it really makes for a very satisfying experience because the palette then meets your expectations, you know what I mean? So let me block the mirror. Yes, I think we can see this palette just fine this way. As you can see, the Soul Blooming is 12 colors, where I feel that this side of the palette is perhaps a little bit more cooler toned, and that side of the palette is a little bit more warm toned leaning. And I have to say I like all these shades. Now these shades are sometimes a little bit light, and they can therefore swatch a little sheer, I would say, and also this is quite flaky. So some of these shades do need building up, and if you can still get this somewhere, I would highly recommend, even though it's been discontinued, because this is just all the colors that I would want to reach for in the spring season. You've got some periwinkles in here, you've got some peachiness, and then you get some really nice warm tone browns. It's just a really lovely combination. So let me swatch this one for you. Okay, so that is what the color story looks like when I swatch it out. So I went top row, this is the middle row, and this is the bottom row. And as you can see, there are some really interesting shifts in this palette as well. Like you've got some duochromes. So this one is like, it looks white in the pan, as you can see, but then it has this like gold flip. And then this shade over here is like a violet to blue sort of indigo kind of flippy shade. This purple also has, like, it's a blue in the pan, but it's, as you can see, it's got a bit of a purple flash, and then the shade right next to it is a matte, but as you can see, depending on how you sheer it out, it just has a slightly different quality to it, which makes it go with everything. and also this shade here, it has a little bit of a blue flip to it as well. And this bronze shade, it's why I swatched it right here. That's this one over here. This is one of my favorite one and done eyeshadows because it's got warmth, it's got a coppery undertone to it almost, but then it does have a little bit of coolness to it. So when you sheer this out, it really transforms depending on the brush you use it with and where you place it on the eye. So it's really one of those shadows that if you just buff it in, it's going to look differently every time, and I love that. So this is a color story that I just love. It's got all the tones that I want, and it's just a perfect spring palette. Then we're going to move on to the Nabla Side by Side palette, and this is a palette that has gotten a lot of rave reviews, I feel, and I tried it, and unfortunately it wasn't really my favorite. It is a neutral palette, so I do love that about it, and it also has, let me grab this palette right here to block the mirror. Can we still see it? Yes, we can. So this is a lovely neutral color story, but what I found is that the mattes in this just didn't blend as smoothly as I know other Nabla shadows to just blend out to. So for me, it just wasn't perfect, and a lot of people have been raving about this, saying, oh, it's got cool tones. These are the only cool tones you get, and then this brown. I mean, a black I kind of discredit all the time because I don't really use black a lot. So for me, it's like this shade and these three, those are the cool tones. Over here, you get some like true neutral shades, especially this top row is quite neutral leaning. But then we do get quite a bit of warmth here, and especially these reddish shades, I feel they just didn't look perfect on my complexion. It's a palette that I like, and I can really see why people like it. It's just that I just don't have the right skin tone and undertone to my skin to really make this work. So I actually have an alternative that I'm going to show you after I've swatched this palette to show you that there's a color story out there that I feel works better on my fair skin. So with this, I feel that there's just a couple of shades that don't really look very distinct on me. For instance, these two reds, I can use either one and it really doesn't make much of a difference. These two are quite similar. These two are quite similar. Like for me, it's just not that perfect. I think that if you have a deeper undertone, or perhaps also if you have olive tone skin, then this is going to be a lovely palette for you. However, if you're cool toned and you are more cool, like more fair toned as well, this is perhaps not going to work. And that is what the Nabla side by side looks like when I swatch it out. As you can see, I hope you could see this as I was swatching them for you, even though I speed up the footage, that you can see that almost every matte I had to build up by going into it twice, especially these darker shades and also like these like reddish toned mattes. They just feel quite dry on me and I just don't love it. However, these two shimmers, it's this one and this one, those I really love. Like these are really standout shades in the palette. I would consider decluttering this though, because I just don't think I'll ever go back to this now that I've tried it, and especially because I have a palette that I like much better that I feel has a very similar color story. And the palette that I think is very similar in terms of its color story is the Misha Lou Cosmetics The Fawn palette. This is a UK indie brand that nobody talks about anymore. A couple of years ago they got quite a bit of hype. But do you just see? You get that gray, you get a nice cool tone shimmer, you get something even lighter than what's going on in here. This shade is actually a duochrome with like a golden flip like you saw in the Soul Blooming. You get those like reddish toned mattes. You don't really get that shimmer though. That's something you do need to bear in mind. But you get that like peachy vibe. You get something a little like antique-y gold, so something that's not this yellow tone, because I don't really love yellow tone golds all that much, so this is a bit more perfect for me. You get a good like peachy matte, something more like this, something creamy like this, a deep dark brown, and then you do get a dark brown shimmer like this. And let me just swatch a couple of these so you can see. I've got two shimmers and two mattes. So as you can see, whoops, These feel super smooth, and these don't need building up twice. So that's just a sample right there. So I would recommend, in terms of formula, I feel this is superior, and also in terms of color story, I feel I can get the same look out of this palette as I can this, and this has fewer shades but more shades that I love. And then finally, in the larger palette department, we have the Secret palette. I always want to call this the Secret Garden. And here again, the palette has a little bit of that green in the palette itself, as you can see here, which I think is really cool. And then this is what the color story looks like. This is a palette where I feel Nabla made it look a lot more interesting in the online pictures before this was released than when I got it home. It looked like it was going to be a super grungy color story, and then it ended up being neutrals with berries, and then this is really the interesting row right here. So I do love a lot of these shades in this row because this is a duochrome flip with a green to it. That rosemary shade is a perfect teal shimmer together with that matte. It's lovely. You get a good purple. Again, a really nice dark brown. And the berries in here are nice, but not something unique to this palette because I already own things like that. And the same thing I feel about these neutrals at the bottom. Lovely shades, good quality, but I have other things like this in my collection, so I don't necessarily feel that I needed this palette in hindsight, but now that I do have it, and because of that middle row, I could never ever get rid of this. So let me swatch this out for you. So as you can see, that's what the color story looks like of the Secret palette. This matte black is so much better than the one in the side-by-side. This feels much more creamy, much creamier, I should say. And this shade right here, it's a matte teal, and those can be difficult to do. And yes, even though there's a little bit of a patch for my finger in here, you can just see that it's a lot smoother than it was in the side-by-side, I feel. So I feel that the matte formula in the Secret is much better. And then these are the two shades that I really wanted to show you how like nice and reflective they are. I also feel these shimmers are just a little bit more vibrant than the ones in the side-by-side again. You do get a really nice like rose gold, like taupey kind of shade. I love shades like that as well. So this for me, I've said it very often, is a perfect layout, because if I were to create a palette, I would go for a palette this small with this many shades in a similar layout to this. That's definitely what I would do. I like how you get berries, something more fun and something very neutral. So I like how this is just a good all-rounder. It's just that in terms of what the overall palette does, I felt it wasn't unique enough, but I'm happy to own it. And if I were ever to go on like a longer trip, like more than just a couple of days, I would definitely bring this palette, because I feel this could be the only palette you bring on a trip and you can do everything. So that's another reason why I do like this one. Alright, so I've given my Cutie palettes a bit of a reshuffle to organize them by, like, in the order in which they are numbered, because these are all numbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, the outer packaging reflects what's going on inside, which I super duper appreciate. So let me just go through these and tell you which ones I like best and which ones I feel I could do without. These are the last two that came out, and by now, as you're watching this video, I have tried all of these on my eyes as well, which I hadn't done yet when I filmed my eyeshadow palette collection video, but we're a couple weeks later and I've actually tried all of these. So the Nude, if you're looking for a good curated nude color story and you're fair-skinned, like this, I want to do a video by the end of the year with like my top 10 neutral eyeshadow palettes, because very often neutral palettes are very warm toned or cool toned, and I like it when neutral palettes are actually like right smack in the middle between a warm and a cool, and I feel that this is exactly that. You get something that's a little rosy, plum leaning, a bit mauve toned almost, but you do get a nice gold, so it's got a bit of warmth, but it's not too cool toned, not too warm toned. I think this is a palette that a lot of people can actually get away with, and especially also if you have a fair undertone, like a fair skin tone like I do, you might find, as I experience as well, that a lot of neutral palettes are way too deep on you. Nabla side by side, we just talked about it, but I feel that this doesn't have it. So this shows me that Nabla just knows how to do a good neutral palette. It's got two really interesting shimmers. I'm not a huge fan of these like latexy kind of cream to powder kind of formula. This I like, but that black I'm a bit about. But yeah, this is a lovely color story, so let me show you. So there you have that. I wish that this would have been a much deeper dark brown. Then I would have liked this even better, and I also feel that the matte black in the Secret palette is much better than this one. This just feels a little bit, it's not as saturated black, it's almost more of like a really deep charcoal, you know what I mean? But I love these two, like this shade here, that's this one. It's worth getting the palette for, to be quite fair. There's two renditions of gold, so I would have liked this to be more of a champagne, because I feel that these two are a little too close together. But this is a very workable, very neutral palette. I wore this the day I shot my video with my Catrice lipstick video, the Vegan Collagen Matte, because I knew I was going to be swatching a lot of different lipstick shades, and with this I feel every lipstick just went. So this is that tells me that this palette does exactly what I wanted to do, which is to be a really good, nicely curated, very neutral color story that will go with anything. This is the palette for people who feel insecure about perhaps using very intense eyeshadows and just want to have something that's perfect for every day. This is your palette. If we're talking favorites of these Nabla Cutie palettes, quite possibly also of all of my Nabla palettes, the Coral Cutie #2 is quite possibly one of my favorites, and I had not expected that because I just told you that I don't necessarily love warm tones, but I feel this, because it's pinks with reds, it does work on me. I can actually make red eyeshadow work quite well on my complexion, so that's the luck of having that neutral undertone that I already mentioned. Here again, two really stunning shimmers. I perhaps could have gone without that goldy bronze shade. Oh well. The red is nice, that coral is nice, and it's got a deep dark brown. My prayers have been heard. A shade like this in the nude I would have preferred, but I have this, so I can pull this in, really. So let me swatch this for you. So there you have all 6 shades. That's that first shade, which is a lovely like peach to pink duochrome. This is more of a topper, this mandarin shade, but I love that about it. And then these two, for some reason, look very similar on my hand, but trust me, when you use this with a brush and you blend it out, it does look differently. And then we just have this bronzy shade, which it's nice, it's okay, but I just feel it's a little too orange toned for what I normally go for. So I know I won't reach for that a whole lot. And then we have that dark brown, as I mentioned, which I love. So yeah, this is one of the more successful ones. I really like the look that I did with this. And it is definitely also more unique in my entire palette collection. And I always appreciate it if a palette does something that I haven't done before and I still feel it works. #3, the Platinum. It's cool tone, so you know I'm going to love this. Is this my favorite cool tone palette of all time? No, it's not. And the reason for that being is because I feel this is not very cool toned. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. This is the cool tone palette for people who don't like cool tones. If you are more warm toned or olive toned leaning and you like to try cool tones but you think they might look ashy on you, try this one, because none of this is overly gray toned. Really, these are the only gray tones you get, and depending on how you pair this palette together, these will skew a little bit differently, and I feel the same way about these. On my fair skin, these almost had like a rosy undertone to them. So it's a bit more warm toned, and then you get a really intense, deep, cool tone brown, and again that bronzy gold shade. However, this is a little bit more green toned leaning, which is why I would recommend this especially for people with olive tone skin, because then green tones can be very flattering on you. So I think that this is a really lovely palette. It's a little deep if you have fair skin though, so it's not a perfect cool tone palette for people with fair skins, but I would say if you are medium to deep or olive undertoned, then this will definitely work on you. So there you have that color story. As you can see, wow, the mattes in here are stunning. This one took some building up, but that's mainly because I was using my ring finger to swatch it. But as you can see, it works really well. And here you can also see a bit that reddish rosy undertone I was mentioning. Stunning silver, stunning taupe. I did get a little bit of hard pan, I thought at first, but actually I prefer applying shimmers with my finger anyways. So I don't really mind that it feels just a little bit dry on the surface, because I feel that that makes it a little bit more user-friendly. And then this is that shimmer right there, this like rosy toned shimmer. Do you just see how lovely that is? And how lovely it would especially pair with some of these other shades as well. And I feel that this like goldy, green, dirty, antique-y gold is really, really stunning too. So lovely palette for sure. Wouldn't recommend it necessarily for people with very light skin tones, but if you have anything deeper than me, this is going to be a great cool tone palette for you. And as much as I love the Coral palette, and I feel that the Metropolitan looks quite similar to it at first glance, and here I feel you don't really get all of the colors, because the purples that you see in this packaging you don't get, which is a bit of a shame. I wish it did, because you get more of like berries rather than purples. It's got a bright coral as well, but it's very more like pink toned leaning. And I feel, now that I've tried it, I don't really love this one. This is going to be one of my least favorite ones in this lineup, mainly because I feel the colors don't really go together. Like this has a blue flip. Why? Because it's the only cool tone in this entire palette. And it's therefore, again, that very yellow tone gold that I don't love. I'm not sure what to do with that shade exactly. So if I were to go back to it, I would only use those 3 shades. The other 3 I don't really like. And with this like very small palette, I want to like at least 5 out of 6 shades for it to be successful, and here I like half. So like the quality, it's similar to the other ones, but I just didn't love how these colors played on me. If you want to see looks with this, I'm going to be featuring the palettes that I hadn't reviewed yet for you in my next 10 palette review, which should be up before the end of the month. So there you have that color story. As you can see, this shade, and that shade, those are my favorites, and you can hopefully tell that those are my favorites for a reason. The other ones, they're nice, but they're not necessarily my favorite shades, that's for sure. And then we have another not so favorite, and that's the Wild Berry palette, the number 5. Again, in here, I feel you get some other shades on the packaging than you actually get inside it. However, I love berries, but these are just, I didn't love the way this also played together. It's got Alchemy 2.0, which is a stunning, stunning shade, as you will see when I swatch it out. But I already owned the original Alchemy shade as a single, so I didn't really need this for this palette, that's for sure. I do really like that Venom shade, but actually my favorite is Bucolic Baby, which is this one, which is a nice duochrome shimmer. It's just that I felt that this color story just wasn't that flattering on me. So that's why I didn't love this necessarily. So there you have the color story. There's Alchemy 2.0. I know a lot of people love this palette solely for that shade, but I really like this. Like if you paired this shade with the Coral Cutie, how stunning would that be? And I just feel that some of the berry shades in here are just a bit too purple for them to really be berries on my skin tone. I do really like that this brown seems to have a bit of a plum undertone. I do really enjoy that. But the rest, I'm like, nah, again, they tend to do quite similar shades in this like peachy, goldy vibe. So that's why this one isn't my favorite. And then the final 2 releases that came out, the Midnight is number 6, and I already did film a look with this on my channel, so if you would like to have a look at that, I'll make sure to link that video down below, because I did do a full face of Nabla this year as well, so in July, I think. So that's when I did this, and I just think this is stunning. I wish this was a blue. Again with the gold. Why? If that shade would have gone out of it and it was like another matte blue, I would have loved this even more. But I just did my ranking of all of my blue-green palettes, and this was in the number 1 spot because I just love it. This matte blue, yes, it's a bit difficult to work with, but this shimmering tealy goodness makes up for it by a mile. So let me just show you what this swatch is like, because I think the swatches will do all the talking. I mean, like, are you for real? Like, Like, I just want to build this one up just a little bit more. This shade is one of those shades that you can wear all over the lid by itself just fine. If you put this over the navy, it's so stunning. Let me do that for you. Let me swatch those like right here so you can see what it does. Let me build it up just a little bit and then put that over it. Do you just see how much depth and dimension that just, oh, lovely. In the way I see it here, just looking at it, I'm not sure if the camera picks up on it, this has a bit of a purple flip to it. It's subtle, but if you put this on the eyes and you see it by daylight, then you're gonna have to just see it for yourself. This shimmering blue, stunning. This white with a blue flip, stunning. This really soft, like blue shade is kind of like, it kind of disappears in the madness of this palette, but I feel it's a great shade to blend something out. I just wish this had a crease shade. And it doesn't really. But this is lovely in a crease. It's just very dark. So if this could have been like this, but in a blue and then matte, I would have liked this palette a lot more, because something like this I just know I won't wear. So yeah, I feel this could have been more blue toned, but I love the 5 shades that I do love, and that's a look. And that's why I love it. So I do apologize if my hand looks a little blue after that, because these shades do stain a little bit. Last but not least, number 7, the Analog palette. And this is one where I was like, oh no, not another warm toned color story when I first saw it. But then I found out that this palette is inspired by 1970s photography, like very, like, you know, that very sepia tone. And I do really like sepia tones on me, like mustardy sepia tones. Those I love. And I wore this the other day, and oh my word, I really like the look that came out of this. It has exactly the right undertone for it to work on me, I feel. Yes, it's a little bit deeper, a little grungy, but I feel that these shades work really well together. They blend out really well. And for once, we don't get a bronzy tone gold, but we get a bit more of a vibrant gold. It's almost like a champagne gold, and that I do like. And then this, you can already see a little bit from sticking my finger in. It's like a peach to gold duochrome. So stunning. This is a lovely shimmer too. Yes, this has everything going for it. I think I might like this even a little bit more than a Midnight, to be quite fair. And I don't love warm tones, so you guys know that about me. For me to love a warm tone palette this much, this and the Coral Cutie, I feel, are 2 warm tone palettes that are just on point. And there you have it. Do you just see how, oh wow, do you just see how lovely this is? And these 2 mattes, I usually don't love orange on me, but because it's got this like burnt orange, it kind of reminds me of some of the shades you get in the ABH Modern Renaissance. Like, it's kind of like, this is a bit like, is it red ochre? And then this is a bit like a more intense version of, is it raw sienna? It's a bit like that. And those are warm tones I can get down with. This is like, it's really giving me ABH soft glam vibes as well, because it's got a bit of that reddish rosiness that I do really like about the soft glam. So yeah, the Analog palette by Nabla. It's so pretty. So if you want my top 3 recommendation when it comes to Nabla palettes, it would be these 3. My other favorite one has been discontinued, so let's not recommend that. And I'm losing light by the minute, so I'm going to round off the video here. So I would like to thank you very much for watching today's video. I hope it was helpful to give you an overview of everything that Nabla has to offer. I'm pretty sure that that can be helpful to some of you if you are considering buying some of these, for instance. And I would like to thank you very much for watching today. I hope you have a great day today. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope you would like to stay tuned for more videos, because I make 3 videos a week, so I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.